All right, so I hope you caught up with your notes on the structure of bone tissue. And now we're just going to move on and just finish off this little section. So we know what compact bone looks like. So compact bone is made up of these osteons, okay? Whereas spongy bone, can you see here, that looks like a sponge? That is not made up of osteons. They're made up of things called tuberculae. Can you see that there? Now, that just means that the osteocytes are just arranged slightly differently compared to compact bone. They are not in rings all stacked up to one, on top of each other. They are kind of more an irregular shape, okay? In between these spaces is where we actually have red bone marrow. So can you see there? See all the little narrow spaces is where we can store some red bone marrow, yeah? We can put in blood vessels in there. We can put lymphatic, we can actually put bone marrow in there, okay? So this is a really it's a very light structure, but it actually forms in the lines of stress, but it's just not in osteons. It's just more of a lattice network. Okay, now we have the type of bones that you guys need to be aware of in this subject are flat bones and long bones. That's it. So if you look at the skull is a flat bone, okay? And can you see here have got compact bone, and spongy bone in the middle, okay? Now what can happen sometimes if you have someone hit you hard enough, you can break this compact bone and crush this, but this could actually be okay. So there's multiple layers here, all right? So red bone marrow is usually found in spongy bone. So we have red bone marrow and yellow, and red is usually in the spongy part, the spongy bone. Long bone, okay, long bone. It's like your humerus and your femur. Can you see how you've got the red bone marrow here? And then here is where we store fat. Multitask, hey? Multitasker. You don't waste anything when in anatomy and physiology. Everything has a job and everything is there for a purpose. Let's have a look at a long bone. Long bone, you've got this part here which is called the diaphyses, and you've got the end bits, okay? You can store fat in here. You make red blood cells from in here. There's cartilage on the ends. Now we're going to have a look at articulations in a minute. There is also some membrane. You've got the periosteum is connective tissue, tissue that covers the bone, okay? And there's also tissue lining covering the inside of the cavity of the bone. And you also have this epiphyseal line, which is, there it is there, and there it is there, and this is where your bones actually grow in length, okay? Oh, here it is again. Epiphyseal line lies between the long piece and the bulgy bit at the end, okay? And I already talked to you about these two sheets. Right, so let's look at how bones grow in width, okay? Not in length, but in width. And this is called oppositional growth. Now, how it works is that here you have a bone that wants to grow. So it's the work of osteoblasts and osteoclasts working together. The first thing that happens is that you reabsorb some bone. So in the inside, you're going to get rid of that, and you're going to lay some new bone around the outside. And that's how your bone grows in width. So you carve out the inside, you lay more around the outside, voila, you've gone from that to that. Easy. So it's the osteoblasts and the osteoclasts working together to make a new version of that structure. Now, this is a really interesting concept, and I think it came from engineering, because it means that the way you use something will determine its structure, okay? So the architecture of the bone, the structure of the bone will be governed by what you do with it. So if for example, here we go. These are two arms of a tennis player. Now, one holds the racket, this one, and this one doesn't hold the racket. Now, can you see here, this bone is used a lot. He's going like that all the time. So that bone is going to adapt. So a bone will grow stronger, more dense, okay, when it's used. If you don't use it, you lose it. So how the bone forms, and the spongy bone in particular, is governed by what it was used for. So if you're using it a particular way, it's going to grow bone in that area. If you don't use it, you're going to get your osteoclasts are just going to reabsorb that. You're going, well, they're not using it. Why is it sitting there? Don't need it. Okay. Now, this is important because bone, as I said, remodeling happens throughout life, and it's a completely normal process. Your osteoclasts are going to break down old bone that needs to be replaced. Your osteoblast is going to make new bone. Happy days. But sometimes this doesn't work like it should. Now, osteoporosis means you have your bones are very brittle, which means that you have your osteoclasts are being too active. Yeah. Normally, you break down as much bone as you build. But with osteoporosis, for whatever reason, you are breaking down more bone than you are building. So your bone is getting weaker. And there are many different reasons for that. But the bottom line is use your bones or else they will disappear. Okay? And that's it. I hope you enjoyed that.